Hi everyone, and welcome at our seventh and last session of this MOOC on entrepreneurship and new venture management. I hope you can hear and see me. Do let us know in the chat. Indeed, my name is Jerke Verschoor and I'm the director of the Netherlands Education Support Office. And I'm very happy that we started this new and for us entrepreneurial event, this MOOC. And I'm very grateful for all the support that we received while building this from the Netherlands Embassy, Ambassador Rob Zwartbol and his colleagues, and of course from Professor Dr. Hein Roelsema, who was the man with the idea in the first place and who will join us at the very end of our session today. On the other hand, I'm also sad that this is our last session. We did enjoy our communication with you and your enthusiastic comments and activity in the chat. It might not be the last time we organize such a course. We will send out a survey anyway to all of you, a short one, and hope you will have time to fill it out. But for now, let's focus on a topic very important in these days and this age, the circular economy, sustainability. How can we encourage reuse and recycling by the use of new circular business models? I'm very proud and happy that today we have with us two great presenters. First, Professor Dr. Nancy Bocken will do the kickoff, and you will see her profile right now while I'm putting it on screen. She will do the kickoff, and she can talk both from her academic background as well as her own experience as co-owner of a startup. She started the new university, Maastricht University, only this March, and before worked also abroad in Sweden and affiliated with the Technical University of Delft. Now afterwards, we will be joined by Alexander Smotritsky, and he is currently in Yekaterinburg, and he will take us with him on his journey on founding a startup in sustainable waste management in Russia, with products already sold, among others, in the Netherlands. But first, I would like to ask Nancy Bocken to join us. Please, Nancy, turn on your camera and your video.
Hello.
Yes, I can see and hear you. I will turn off my sound and my video while you are loading your screen.
Yes.
And let's see if that works. How we tested it.
Yeah, that should work. It will take a second, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. Just a sec while it's loading. I will give you also a time when I see it, because then everybody also sees it. Yes, there it is. Good luck, Nancy.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for inviting me to this session. It's a bit strange to do this at a distance from my home in Maastricht, but I hope I can convey the message also from a distance. So today I will talk about the following: circular business model innovation in research and practice. So I start a bit with the theory, but also some examples. And I also talk about my own startup later in the presentation. And below you can see some of my current affiliations, of which the last one is also the startup I'm part of. But my main base is Maastricht, where I'm making this phone call from. So first of all, I wanted to give you like a picture of some of the current issues that we see. Like since the 1950s, you can see trends of everything going up, up and up. Since the 1950s, for instance, the number of McDonald's restaurants has gone up like a hockey stick diagram, up, up, up. This might be funny, but of course that goes coupled with an impact on the environment. At the same time, we see population rising, also atmospheric CO2, so greenhouse gases, and also we see negative impacts like tropical rainforest losses. So because of our current ramp up of production and consumption, we can see at the same time maybe positive trends for the economy, but also negative trends on the environment. So what is the consequence of this? Being from the Netherlands, you can see that if climate change continues like this, we might be far below sea level, actually half sea, half country. So this is not something that would be desirable, I guess, for anyone. And second, also a bit more further afield, the Aral Sea, so near Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan, you can see that it has been drying up directly due to cotton production and the irrigation that is required for this. And a lot of work is being done now to try and revive that, but you can see some direct consequence already from unsustainable production and consumption patterns. So today I want to talk a bit about solutions for that. So one of the ways to start tackling this is to rethink how we innovate. And I think you talked a lot about innovation already during these lectures. And now I want to give you a bit of a viewpoint on how you can actually start thinking about negatives and turning them into positives. For example, as a business, rather than starting to think about what are my new opportunities, what about thinking about value destroyed and value missed first? So value destroyed really is the negative impacts and outcomes of the business. And in economics, traditionally, we would have called those externalities because we would push them outside the firm. But basically, it's the damaging social and environmental impacts of your business on different stakeholders. Value miss is a bit more subtle, so it's where you fail to create value. Maybe you have assets or maybe even people that are not, are being used up to their capacity, capabilities, operating below best practice, and those are examples of value missed. And if you become aware of those from your different stakeholders' perspectives, then you should start thinking about opportunities to transform those into positive innovations. So this is quite a busy picture, but you can see some of those negative impacts like deforestation, pollution, drying up of the Aral Sea, but also child labor. On the right-hand side, you can see things like the value missed, like maybe the plastic in the sea, same time maybe value destroyed, but also traffic jams, where maybe one person uses the car at a time, and that contributes to huge traffic jams. Piles of clothes being unused. And at the top, you see some businesses that have turned them into positives. I added some Dutch examples like Fairphone and Tony Chocolonely. Tony Chocolonely is a chocolate brand that is now like amongst the top in terms of market share in the Netherlands, but it also made it to other places in Europe and also the US. Fairphone has a hugely transparent value chain trying to eradicate some of the poverty. Same happens for Tony Chocolonely, trying to get rid of forced labor as part of their business model. But at the same time, they try to offer a quality product. And then you see Lena, fashion library. Rather than buying a jacket, you might actually borrow it for the time that you use it. Car sharing, of course, is a way to maybe reduce the costs on the roads. You see the guy in the empty office. Maybe office spaces like Airbnb can be used in more creative ways. And also the example of IKEA becoming forest positive, like adding more trees and biodiversity than you take. So the same counts for farming, like the world depends on it. So maybe you can even leave the world in a better place than you found it as a business. So these are some real business examples, not utopia, but real businesses, large and small, trying to practice that. And find your talent is actually people, for instance, who are blind and cannot maybe find a more regular job, but it's office that intermediates and finds them good jobs in society. So the value mapping tool, you can use the slides later, but this is one of the examples of a tool that you could use to brainstorm about new value opportunities, starting with the purpose of the business, then really what value is being captured for those stakeholders in the firm, and specifically employees are split from investors and stakeholders, shareholders, because they might not have the same views on what is important. And when you start thinking about what is really the purpose and why am I in a business and what is the value captured, then you can start thinking about any things that you might miss or destroy or waste. And based on this analysis, then you can start thinking about value opportunities. So this is really a way to start brainstorming as a business, like what can I do next to think about new opportunities? And I've used this with various businesses, but also with students trying to think about entrepreneurial ideas. So I think you've seen a version of the business model canvas before in an earlier lecture. So you will also see how I manipulated this one. So people will see that I added people, profit, and planet. So the John Elkington triple bottom line. And I think when we think about value propositions, we shouldn't only think about how much profit we can make, but also how we can positively address planetary and societal problems, and actually try to do something positive for that, because that's also in the long term better for the business. So what does this canvas look like if you divide it up a little bit? So the core is really the value proposition, like what am I offering? Then the value creation, so how do I work with partners, but maybe also my wider stakeholder network like NGOs? how do I deliver that value? So maybe also in terms of customer segments, more sustainable segments could be addressed, or untapped opportunities. And the value capture is how can I then create that positive impact, but maybe not only for myself as a business, but also the wider ecosystem I'm part of. So this is sort of a modified version of the business model canvas that has been very popular to innovate. So when you divide those questions, and if you want to start thinking about what is a business model, how do I innovate it, I think you can divide it into 3 simple questions. First of all, the value proposition. What is it I'm offering? What value is provided to whom? A simple question, but this is the basic thing that you should be asking yourself. Then, how is this value provided? And the third, how does the company or the firm make money and capture other forms of value? And part of this is maybe a bit complicated, but it's also in a sustainable business. Think about the growth ethos and what you're actually selling. Companies like Patagonia, a big outdoor company, and others are really considering, for instance, post-COVID as well, like what is the right size of my business? Even also in the travel sector, all types of changes are happening. And I think that is something we need to think about also in terms of sustainability. So circular economy, today we're talking about circular economy, and I think people ask me, like, is this the next best thing? Well, you can see, at least when you look at the academic world, you can see like influx of academic articles. I think if you would add the last 3 years to it, it would even be more. But also from a business perspective, PACE is the platform for accelerating the circular economy, and it's quite big in the Netherlands, with big multinationals being part of it and saying out loud, we need to transition to a circular economy. So I think it's something that's being carried by academia, business, but also policy, with the circular economy package in Europe and also many other places where circular economy is becoming like a big topic. So why on earth is circular economy such a big thing? I think it's because of 2, relatively simple promises. Over time, resource use is expected to go down. And from my first slides, you can see that it's becoming problematic. We are reaching all kinds of pressures that we don't want to reach. So circular economy has the potential to reduce the number of resources, while at the same time making a profit, for instance, by using the same material and selling it over and over again, or the same product, selling it over and over again in different ways after different cycles of recycling, but also refurbishing, and also maintenance even. So this is my view on simple view, but of course there's loads of other promises that people have seen in circular economy, and of course we need to make sure that as policymakers, as businesses, but also in academia, that some of those promises will be fulfilled, like being more innovative, future competitiveness of a business, being interesting for future employees, like young people, for instance, more and more like millennials, but also the generation after the millennials find sustainability, circular economy more and more important as a reason to work even for a company. So they might choose not to work for a company when they're unsustainable. So this is something to think about as well when you're running a business. And you can also see it back in education programs that future sustainability more and more. So I think there's more business cases than the simple one that are presented, and you can see it a little bit here. Also, you can see lithium carbonate prices, all other kinds of prices. It's also a way to hedge against future price shocks. If you hold on to a material and can reuse it, then it's also a way to save costs, perhaps in the future. So sustainability, circularity, and also services. For me, the circular economy is really a subset of sustainability. So sustainable development more broadly, I think that's here to stay. And today, of course, we're talking about business models. And I think moving from products to services, or product service systems, has been like a key way to think about what such new business models might be. And of course, there's not a complete overlap. You can see it here in the picture. You can also imagine services that are more unsustainable, for instance, selling more unsustainable products, or selling more and more and adding, for instance, to transport. So this is something that we need to take in mind when we design new product service systems. What are we actually designing? But of course, I need to explain what such circular business models might look like. And I try to explain it often with a simple concept of slowing, closing, and narrowing the loop. I think when people think about the circular economy, they think recycling. When I speak to an average person on the street, maybe about circular economy, they say, oh, it's about recycling, if they have heard about the concept. But I think one of the ones that we shouldn't forget, and maybe it's going back to the 1950s, where some of those earlier graphs started, where consumption started to go up and up. It's also about extending the useful life of products and making sure they last longer. So that is really slowing the loop. So that's that long cycle going on there. And then narrowing the loops, that's really about making sure that you use less material per product. So that's in the manufacturing stages, but also perhaps lightweighting, so using less material per product. So I'll give you a few examples of what that might look like. I'm not trying to endorse any companies here, so they're mainly illustrative examples of businesses trying to do circular economy activities. But first, one thing is that one of the strategies that has been forgotten is slowing the loop. So the more radical forms of circular business models, like sharing, like peer-to-peer, making stuff last longer. I think that is one of the things that has been a bit slow on the corporate agenda. And we've seen that by looking at S&P 500 firms, so the 500 biggest firms on the stock exchange in the US. And we saw that, that is sort of behind, and that recycling and closing the loop is really still common practice and not really slowing the loop. But what are some of those strategies? Some examples like Toyota production system is really about continuous improvements. And that means that continuously you try to edit out waste, like less waste over time. So the Toyota production system has sort of become synonymous with lean and lean manufacturing and no waste at all, because it will be reduced through the Toyota production system approach with continuous improvements. And on the other hand, they also have the hybrid car, so they use they use less energy in the use phase. So, for instance, electric cars, hybrid cars are examples of narrowing the loop. Other examples is reducing packaging, for instance. I already mentioned lightweighting. So companies like Apple, you can see that they reduce it by a few grams. But of course, if you add up all those grams for all the packaging that is being used, that is, of course, very efficient. So you can also see that packaging maybe gets smaller, so you can have more packages in one transport carrier. So that is also more efficient in terms of transports, in addition to saving energy. So these are some examples of narrowing the loop. But then going back to this business model canvas, is this a feasible, desirable, and viable strategy? Apologies for the funky colors here, but this is just easy trying to summarize some of those things according to whether it's desirable, feasible, and viable. Of course, if you use less material, it could save costs. That might be a good thing, right? Feasibility, maybe it might be technically a bit challenging. It might take some time to innovate, but you might also procure existing technology. So in terms of viability, in some cases it's a direct cost saving because you use less material, but also if it is more costly, are customers willing to pay for it? So it really depends a little bit on the types of innovations that you pursue. So is it more, does it really need new technology, or is it something clever where you can just reduce a layer or package it in a more clever way? So it really depends a little bit on the type of innovation that you're pursuing. But this is just to create an overview in terms of desirability, feasibility, and viability. But I think in terms of strategies, I think narrowing the loop could be quite advantageous as a strategy, because it doesn't necessarily ask too much from the customer, for instance, when you have a new packaging, as that example shows. And of course, saving energy in the factory, that will hopefully have a positive knock-on effect later on in the price of the product. Then the second example is around closing the loop. This is more like a business-to-business example, like Kyocera, toner tape back services. Like, for instance, the customer can send back the cartridges of the printer, and then they can even refill or maybe recycle some of those toner packages. Other examples for the food industry, grow up urban farms. So basically it's a combination of farming fish and farming salads. So the poo from the fish can actually be used to fertilize the salad. So it's quite a clever idea. With grow, actually coffee waste are used to grow mushrooms. And then some other examples like raw for the oceans, using that ocean plastic you saw in my first picture to create new jeans. Networks uses old fishing nets and turns them into carpets. Nike grind old trainers, sports trainers are being turned into football pitches. And finally, also more different car industry example, a collaboration between Jaguar Land Rover and its suppliers to actually use recycled aluminium. And that sounds like quite easily going from virgin to recycled aluminium, but it can save up to 90% in terms of energy use, virgin versus recycled aluminium. And also, of course, as a premium brand, is this seen as something good, recycled or not? So I think it might sound easy substituting a material, but in the case you can actually read more about some of the ways that the dynamics of collaboration worked as well, and how the case worked out. So in terms of desirability and feasibility and viability, some examples. Maybe an innovative business model is necessary, and you might need to educate the customer. For instance, in terms of the Kyocera take-back example with the printer cartridges, you need to educate them that there's still value in that container and that you want it back, basically. But it's also, in terms of feasibility, it really allows you to reuse the material directly, also establish maybe better partnerships with your suppliers as well as your customers. Like while you get it back from them, you might send the new cartridges. In terms of viability, if you have a service business model, where you keep the ownership of the product, you might have more steady income streams. But also you might have some financial issues with the balance sheet as well, because you have to upfront finance some of the products in the service model. You get it back over a longer time. And I might add on in terms of logistics and also repair and maintenance. So there's things that you have to balance in these business models. Then the final one is slowing the loop. It's one of my favorite business models because to me it makes so much sense to make products last longer and also make money out of the same product many times. So you can see big companies like H&M Group working with formerly startups like Sellpy, which is a peer-to-peer, so consumer-to-consumer model. And this model, basically, they try to create like a vintage market or second-hand market for clothing. So like me as a customer can give like my clothing item and can sell it on to others on this exchange. And H&M really believes in this and tries to move away from this fully linear model to a more circular model where you can maybe reuse your clothes over time. Some other examples, Vitsu, it's a furniture company in the UK. In terms of where they are in terms of cost, they're more towards the premium end. But basically, they have this ethos of living better with less that lasts longer. So they rather want you to buy less, but something that lasts longer. So these products often end up in people's wills because they last so long. And also the 1950s design is still compatible with the design now, so you can keep adding on to the existing furniture. Then we have Patagonia on the right. They did this Don't Buy This Jacket campaign in the New York Times in 2011 on Black Friday, which for the Americans especially is a day where you should go shopping and buy more. And also this was a way to create awareness for customers to maybe think before you buy, repair, reuse, and eventually recycle. They got into the food business, a bit like the IKEA example where I mentioned that they try to contribute to afforestation. Also through their business, they want to contribute to salmon conservation. So creating making sure that there's wild salmon in nature again through their food business. Then there's other examples like slow food, maybe eating a little bit less but healthier and more sustainable foods. And also iFixit and repair cafes. So they really focus on encouraging repair with customers. So these are some of the examples of slowing the loop. So in terms of desirability, feasibility, and viability, there's many things you can say, but for instance, again, customer education in terms of desirability, but of course there's many positive things like extra value for the customer, but you might educate them about the total cost of ownership of a product, like if you pay more upfront, why do I pay more upfront? Viability, you might cannibalize your own markets when you focus too much on vintage. So these are some of the things that you might want to think about. And I want to end a bit, not to end the presentation yet, but have an example of a business model that I'm part of myself, basically. So this is a business that I co-founded called Homey. And I want to focus on that because it tries to combine some of the strategies of slowing, closing, and narrowing the loop. And basically, this is us, the team. We started maybe with 3 people, and we are now with even more people than in the picture. And what we try to do is focus on the problem of products that last not so long and are too expensive for the customer. And at the same time, e-waste growing. And durable washing machines and other appliances in the home, they're too expensive for the customer. So we wanted to focus on a proposition that allows people to afford a durable machine that lasts longer. But at the same time, we also want to stimulate sustainable behavior. So our solution is a pay-per-use business model. So a washing machine or other appliance gets installed for free in your home, and you only start paying when you use it. So no initial cost, repair included, nudging customers for sustainable behavior, and also trying to activate others to take responsibility for circular design. So this is the pay-per-use business model. And when you look at it for a washing machine, this is what it looks like if you go to the website. So this is a proposition. So we install the washing machine for free in someone's home, and they only start paying once they start using the washing machine. And you can see already that we want people to wash at cold temperatures because that's much cheaper than a high temperature. And we do that because of the environment, and we want people to wash at lower temperatures. And this has paid off. So this is based on, here you see some of our happy customers as well at the bottom. But you can also see from this picture is that first month 0 is the month that we gave people for free to see how often they wash. And at month 0, they wash 15 times. But once we start installing pay-per-use, it tails off to about 12, 13 times a month. And we also see that people, especially in the high temperature box, so that's the dark orange one on this right side, we see that they lower their temperatures over time thanks to our pay-per-use business model. So this is one of the examples. We're now in dryers, I think also already in the dishwashers, and we want to expand to other products because, as you can see, it's an offering that combines a service model that allows for repair and reuse, but also stimulates sustainable behavior. So this is what we want to do through this business model. So how do we get there? So you might be puzzled, like, okay, I might have my ideas now. I want to try maybe this value mapping to come up with new ideas, but what should I do now? So one of my recent topics of research has been experimentation, and the lean startup is one area that can help you with this experimentation. And I'm not sure whether others have talked about it yet, but the basic idea is to quickly test and get out of the building and test certain things with customers. So you set up like a minimum viable product, an easy idea, you get out of the building to test it, and then you see whether your business model might be a viable model. To give an example, with Homey, we started with only 3 washing machines that were installed in people's homes. And that was the way to actually test whether we could connect a washing machine, whether the pay model would work, etc. So this is something that we tried. But of course, you can think about many minimal viable products. Could be like a physical prototype. You could even make a paper version that you show to customers. So that could be like a simple way to see, like with different people, like what might it look like. And you see some examples. Focus groups could also be a thing to do it, or digital prototyping. You could make like a fake advertisement perhaps on Facebook to test how many people click on it and whether they like your proposition. But the idea is that it's low cost, that you easily get feedback from others before you develop the whole business and then find out that it didn't work. So some of those things, business experiments, the Homey pay-per-use example is one of the examples that I've been involved in. But also Redress, it was a project with Marks and Spencer, so it doesn't only work for small business, but also large business. So here we try to work with different types of circular business models with this particular retailer in the UK. So this was a project that was running a while back. And now, most recently, I started a European Research Council project called Circular X, and that's about experimentation with circular service business models. I will show you the website in a bit, so you can maybe also have a look at some of those examples around that. So the key takeaways for today, I think, first of all, consider the value missed and destroyed for your different stakeholders before thinking about those new opportunities. So also society and environment you can see as key stakeholders, and eventually that will pay off. That's at least what we've seen in various studies. Circular economy is about slowing, closing, and narrowing resource loops, where slowing is one that we might forget, but it could have a high potential. And experiment, think big, but start small, but really start. So that would be my way to say, if you have an idea, try and set it up. So these are some of the projects that I've been involved in. So if you want to see more examples, feel free to click on those websites. So some of them are European projects like Circusol, which is about circular service business models for solar panels. Zero Brine, which is, about desalination, for example, and different types of projects you can find here. And the last one, I promised to show you the website. This project only started basically 2 weeks ago, so you can find more on the circularx.eu website. And I want to leave you with a positive thought. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. So if you feel a bit down because of COVID and everything, maybe this is a positive way to think about what can I do next and contribute to a positive future. That was it from my side. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nancy, for your very good presentation, very spot on, very much in time also. And in the meantime, I'm uploading a presentation because Alexander Smotritsky sent us a new one, which was quite valid. And I would like to ask Alexander to come on. Nancy, as you know, we will ask you to stay with us, and I will invite you back after Alex is finished, and then we'll start the discussion. Thank you very much for now. Let's see if I have the good one. Apologies. Just a second, because it's converting. Alex, are you with us? Can you turn on your video?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hello, good. Maybe you can start introducing yourself while the presentation is converting. It just takes a while because you sent us after we started already.
Okay,
yes,
sure.
It's ready.
Hello everyone. I'm Alex with WiseSoil. I'm co-founder and CEO of this company. It's called Bioenergy LLC, and we are making organic waste disposal profitable. And I am glad that our example is used as a showcase for the circular business model implementation. As she mentioned earlier, business plays one of the key roles in converting the circular business model from the idea into the practice, and we are working hard to contribute in this movement as well to our local niche, organic waste recycling. So what is organic waste, and some key facts about our company. So our company, the first trials, the first lab results was launched in 2014, and a year later, in 2015, we had some first IP results, patent applications. Later in the same year, in 2015, we raised seed funding from the one of RVC funds. We became the members of the Skolkovo Foundation, and in 2016 we launched first sales. Our first customer was the biorefinery from the United States, and later we entered the international market. And our next step that we are working on is the shift into the licensing business model and providing an exit for our VCs. As we are working into the small, narrow niche, we are not looking on the IPO, of course. We are looking for the strategic acquisition by the one of the market leaders like Enegas or Agricomp. So we are making organic waste recycling profitable. What is organic waste? Organic waste, every one of us generates it on the daily basis. It can be organic fraction of municipal solid waste, it can be wastewater, it can be food scraps, and even the companies that are growing food for us, let's say poultry farms or swine farms, they are generated 1,000 tons of organic waste per day. And one of the most widespread approaches to convert this organic waste into something valuable is to use the anaerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is the process which takes place into the biogas plants. And biogas plants are huge tanks where organic waste is broken down by the bacteria into the biogas and fertilizer. Organic fertilizer can be used on the fields, and biogas is used to produce renewable energy. It looks pretty sustainable, but it has two drawbacks. I'll show them on an example of one of our customers. Here you can see the photo of the Rochinevets biogas plant. This is the facility that takes 100 tons of organic waste per day and converts it into the organic fertilizer and renewable energy. But first drawback is that this process takes about 90 days. And you can see here feedstock before on the left picture and after 90 days of processing on the right picture. And it is not fully converted. You can see on the right picture the organic fibers, and the experiments showed that these organic fibers can generate 30% of additional energy. And it means that this facility it does not use all the potential of technology to convert organic waste into the renewable energy. And one more problem is that this technology generates wet digestate. It is a high quality fertilizer, but it includes 95 to 98% of water, and to store this amount of fertilizer, you need to build the big tanks. And these tanks, as you can see on the photo, they are even bigger than the biogas digester itself. So what is our approach to this inefficiency of traditional way of organic waste conversion into the renewable energy? We developed a hardware solution. It's a plug-and-play pretreatment module that is installed on any biogas plant, and it helps to improve both amount of renewable energy generated by the from the same amount of organic waste, and it helps to reduce the digestion time. Second of our solution is installed after the digester, and it helps to convert wet digestion product, digestate, into the dry fertilizer with the minimal use of the heat. So how does this technology works? I'll use an analogy. If biogas plant is like a stomach, then our module is like teeth that chew the food before it gets into the stomach. I would not go deep into the technology, but briefly, our model combines 5 pre-treatment stages in a single and energy-efficient solution that allows to completely change the feedstock structure. And combination of all these pre-treatment steps in a single unit allows to use the synergy of the different ways of pretreatment and consume less energy than the other ways of substrate pretreatment. Here you can see how the organic waste looks before on the left and after pretreatment. Or one more example on the next slide. And what does this photos means? It means that the intracellular membranes of biomass are completely destroyed or at least damaged, and it allows bacteria inside the biogas digester to get more nutrients and to convert all of the nutrients from the organic waste into the renewable energy. What it means in terms of the efficiency, in terms of productivity. Here you can see the comparison of the amount of renewable energy or biogas generated before the use of our model and with our model. And here we can see the 30% difference. In other words, it means that from the same amount of organic waste, from 1 ton of organic waste, we can get 30% more renewable energy. What it means in terms of financial sustainability. Here you can see the 3-year P&L for the biogas plant, and it shows that payback period for our product is less than 3 years, and for our customer, for the biogas plant owner, it means that he can reduce the the costs of the feedstock that he is using. It's very important that currently biogas plant owners, they are buying crops to convert them into the renewable energy. For example, they are buying corn silage. And with our solution, the biogas plant owners can use the organic waste instead of buying crops. And that's why they are saving funds on the feedstock. And as we see, it is both economically and ecologically viable. So few examples of our installations you can see here, and in more detail, here you can see the photo of the biogas plant in Finland that is using our equipment. This very biogas plant converts 25 tons of organic waste into the renewable energy every year. They are using mixed organic waste, for example, food waste, cow manure, organic fraction of municipal solid waste, and so on. And you can see here the photo of our equipment installed, and the result of use of the WiseSoil model is the 17% improvement of the energy production. So let's get back to the business models, as we're mainly should talk about them instead of the product. So currently we are using the business model based on the product sales, and we are working on it by using two channels. It's direct sales, and we're working through the distributors. By 2022, we're going to shift mainly to the licensing. What licensing means? It means that we're not selling the product, but we are selling license to produce the same product in any given country. Another option is the hardware on demand business model. It means that we are providing our equipment to the customer, and we're sharing the profits from the use of this equipment with our customers. How in practice direct sales looks for equipment? So we are showcasing our product on different expos and trade shows, but currently in pandemic times, of course, everybody shifted all their activity to the online and online marketing tools are the best for the initial steps of marketing. But later, as you're working with the hardware, you would have to show your product to the customers. And another level of this marketing campaign is use the mobile pilot units. What does it mean? It means that we are bringing our product to the customer, and we're using the short-term installation to show how product works. One more important part of the business model, if you're working with the deep tech solutions, like I believe we do, is the IP portfolio management. And what does it mean? It means that you have to choose beforehand, before you are getting a patent, which region you should work, which region you are going to use it. Because, for example, in our case, time spent from the IP, from the patent application to the patent took about 5 years for the US, an example. And so it means that this strategy should be prepared before you will get all these costs on the patent portfolio management. One more crucial part of the business and business model is the team. We have a small team, and but in any case, it's important to cover all the all the major areas of competence. In our case, we with the small team are working both on the product development, on the R&D, and on the business development, and on the customer relations. And on the early stage, it's very great to option to use the mentors as the to get an advice in any area that you are not familiar with. And for example, guys, on the bottom of the slide are our mentors that we met during the Cleantech Open Accelerator. So even in this narrow niche that we are working on, you can find the mentors that will help you on the early stage of the product development. And so if we will get the results that we are looking forward to, we believe that in a few years, upon covering the let's say 10% of the existing biogas plants with our solutions, we will help to produce the over 3 terawatts of renewable energy, over sequester over almost 3 million tons of CO2, and help to clean over 80 million tons of wastewater. And one more fine example of how we are adjusting our business model during the pandemic times. Here you can see the photo of the new product launched in April. So as we are in the pandemic times now, everybody needs the sanitizers, and our business model adjustment was not the new ways of distribution, new ways of marketing, but the new ways, new product. We developed this new product in about 2 weeks, and brought it to the first customer in less than a month. And currently, our customers are happy with this possibility to produce the sanitizers. And so that's how this small business, on our example, adjusts the business model when something unusual happens. So that's it. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Alex. And I'm very happy that you turned also in the new presentation with your last slide. In the meantime, I'm asking Nancy to come back on with your video and your sound, so we can have a discussion. The last slide, indeed, because in the previous sessions we have discussed how startups should adjust to these new circumstances. And that's also the first question I would like to start with. Nancy, as you know, in the Netherlands, there's been a discussion about if this pandemic is not interfering with the Dutch government or the European Union or the world aim to make the world greener. Aren't we going back now to support fossil industries to make sure that the economy remains and take away some of the attention towards circular business models that encourage reuse and recycling? I think the so-called green agenda. Do you think that this current pandemic offers new opportunities, and then yes, in what way? Will we also see this danger? And Alex, I will have the same question to you in the Russian context, how you see this happening.
Yeah, so it's a difficult question to fully predict it, but I think in terms of policy, I don't see any policies going away. The only unfortunate thing that is sometimes happening now is the direct investment in companies otherwise going bankrupt without any conditions around sustainability. So that is a huge missed opportunity. But in some countries and some cities, companies, it is actually happening that there's conditions like only when you build it green, keep the employment, then you can get money. So for me, that would be the most viable solution. But as the policy side of things, in terms of what is happening post-COVID with businesses, I did a presentation on that last week. And I think it's really interesting to see the current developments. One thing, for instance, is that you see that fashion shows are reducing. So, but also there was a letter from the fashion industry saying, with the first thing, let's not create unnecessary products and unnecessary waste. And that was signed by the likes of Gucci and other huge companies. And they said, let's stop this whole fast fashion thing. And you can wonder, is this because of COVID, because they're not selling so much anyways, or is this rethinking the size of the business? And a similar webinar I was part of with Patagonia, they also said we need to rethink what the right size of the business is. And tourism, you see the same. It's, of course, being artificially restricted, but also cities are thinking about how can the locals benefit from the cities again. Think about Amsterdam, Venice being swamped by tourists. How can we make it a nice, livable city for the people again, who will also spend their money there? So it delivers interesting opportunities, maybe sometimes more local, but I'm very positive about the future still.
Okay, thank you. Alex, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so what regards the policies, it's funny that our products demand on them. are based on the policies strongly. As an example, if you have a business, you have a poultry farm, you have to do something with your organic waste that generated by the company, by the facility. And in Europe, it is normal, it is okay. But in Russia, currently, almost everybody, or a lot of the companies, they just try not to spend much money on this management, on the organic waste management, and only lately new policies from the government pushed them to use new technologies for the management of organic waste more sustainable. And I see it is a good sign for the ecological and environmental situation throughout the developing countries as Russia. And what regards the new times like pandemic, I showed the last slide in my presentation how we are adjusting our product line during these times. And I know two other startups located in Ekaterinburg and Perm that have changed their product line pretty quickly. First of them also launched the production of the sanitizers, and others, they launched the production of the systems that are measuring the temperature of the workers contactless. And I see it as a good opportunity for those who can develop pretty quickly.
Thank you, Alex. A question that I will ask both of you. Let's see, I want you to combine them. First, I'll start with Nancy again. If you look at sustainable startups that are sometimes ahead of the market readiness, the market is not ready for your sustainable plan. So, what is your take on that? And combining that with another question, for your specific startup, Homey, for your clients, it's rather about comfort and sustainability than money profit.
Yeah, very good questions. Readiness. I think the startups, if you look at literature and the theory, the startups are often the ones pushing some of the innovations. But what I see of late is that large businesses are also following, and they're trying to create like the propositions like car sharing in addition to car selling. For instance, in Sweden, you have Sunfleet, which is fully owned by Volvo, big car manufacturer, and they are the biggest car sharing platform. And that happened after loads of other companies have experimented with it. You have BMW also having car sharing in Germany. So I see, yes, the startups often show that it could be a viable model, and then the others follow. And there's others who want to copy us, but rather than maybe doing like pay-per-use, they have like a rental model. But of course, with rental, you cannot really stimulate consumer behavior in the way that we do it with our pay-per-use business model. Like a rental is mainly a financing mechanism rather than really a sustainable proposition if you don't set it up that way. So that's really interesting. So different dynamics happening at the same time. Then you asked about Homey, and are we mainly about comfort and sustainability? I think I put...
Are your clients choosing comfort and sustainability above...
Yeah, you can also see in the text box I put one of the fact sheets, and I think one of the reasons... so there's 3 reasons why people choose us. Like reason 1 might be, in the beginning it was sustainability. Everyone was like, oh wow, this sustainable company, we need to go for it. And there was a lot of word of mouth and people saying, oh, look at this sustainable company, let's go for it. So in the beginning it was mainly sustainability because there wasn't so much out there yet. Then we got many people who wanted to save costs, because you have zero upfront cost, and not everyone can afford a washing machine. So then the second offer reason was cost, like people in social housing that don't have a washing machine but can afford it now. Then we have flexibility. We also have many students, for instance, and they, I don't know, might have to move to other places. So we have, I think, now a minimum of 6 months contract time, but then they can freely give it back, end the contract, and then we can, clean, repair the washing machine and put it somewhere else again. So I think it's cost saving, flexibility, sustainability, and I think we have different customer groups with different reasons, and sometimes this double reasons or triple reasons.
Yeah. And Alex, starting with the question I started with Nancy, how to manage the fact that sustainable startups are sometimes ahead of the market. Now, WiseSoil, were you right on time? Was there already demand when you started, or did you really have to explain it? And how was your market entry both in Russia and abroad?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting question, because in Europe we are right on time, because criteria for this is that we already have competitors based in Germany, in UK, and it shows that there is a demand on this product, and we are one of the providers of the solution for these problems. And in Russia, yes, we're pretty clear before time. We're too early because there are almost no customers for our solution. Because, for example, if we take Germany, there are 10,000 biogas plants. If we take Netherlands, it's about, let's say, 1,000 biogas plants. I'm not familiar with the numbers, but that's something like this. And in Russia, it's, let's say, 20 biogas plants. And it means that nobody took this organic waste recycling seriously, let's say 10 years ago. And currently, once again, with the help of these government policies, we show the some shifts. And yes, the outcome for us is that we are mainly working on the European markets and bringing some products not connected with the waste recycling to the local market, like the sanitizers or something else. So briefly, that's it.
And because we have always an audience that always likes the very practical, so there's also questions to you. How did you find your investors? Where did you get your investment from, and how were you searching for them? And how did you meet your mentors? So the people you showed on the final, last before final slide. If you could elaborate.
Sure. We met our mentors that I showed on the one of the last slides during the Cleantech Open Accelerator. I'd like to advise to anybody who is launching a startup to take part in all the possible meetups, local events, global events, and it's a good way to meet new people. And why this Cleantech Open event was the place where we meet our mentors, not the Slush, not Hello Tomorrow, not something else, because the structure of this accelerator is devoted to the assignment of the different mentors to each startups that takes part in this accelerator, and that helped us and both them to work deeply onto the different aspects of the business model development, mainly because we are having our team have mainly technical background, and we didn't know what is sales, what is customer development, and how to work with customers, and so on. And of course, this guys helped us a lot, taught us how to do business. And what regards the investors, our seed round was covered by one of the government owned funds. It's called RVC Seed Fund, together with the private co-investors. And it shows that once again government money, they play a big role in such not popular solutions as the waste recycling, and so that's how we found them. Yeah, and by the way, we found these investors by taking part in one of the accelerators. It's now maybe the biggest accelerator in Russia. It's called Generation S. That's how we found the investors.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's also good advice, I think, to people listening in here. I have a question. I think Nancy, you can elaborate probably how to incorporate the circular business models for companies whose operations are performing across different countries, and where you have a different present level of sense of green concepts. So some countries are obviously ahead of others in their green deals. So if you could comment.
Sorry, I was on mute for the echo, maybe. So I think it depends really on the type of company, but what I've seen is that some ideas could be implemented more easily. For instance, when you look at clothing take back, if it's just a matter of a collection box in a shop, that might be less complicated than full service models. So I think we need to look at which innovations can be done more quickly, and others might require a more local approach, understanding, for instance, which stakeholders you need to work with, whether it's like repair networks or transport companies. So those with a more complicated, maybe rental, lease, pay-per-use model might require a more local approach than product take-back or waste collection. So I think, it depends a little bit, but some can be implemented more easily globally than others.
Okay. And then Alex, during this course, we have been discussing with people joining, and they are students, they are employed people, they are entrepreneurs, about what you need to start a successful startup. Nancy has also been talking about the circular business model. What, in your opinion, is your biggest advice to people who would like to start a startup from the theoretical point of view? So what do you really need to take as a basis? A certain model? I mean, we've discussed the canvas model, a certain type of financing. You mentioned that you went to accelerators, which has been discussed during this course. So what would be your advice?
My advice is to look on the practical side. What I mean is to look at the customer. If you have some background, let's say in biology, in medicine, in physics, and you understand that there are some problems in some niche that you are familiar with. So firstly, you have to find the potential customers to the solution that you might be working with, and because there are a lot of examples which I see, for example, in Russia as well, as I have an scientific background, so we developed some stuff that is used just to write a paper and nobody uses it, and that's not the way of doing business. And if you are starting with the technology, maybe you will find the customers and maybe not. And if you're starting with the customers, you will find the solution way to the market promptly. It's not the maybe a way of building of deep tech startups approach, but for the regular startups, I think it's the better way from the practical aspect.
Thank you. Then my last question is to you, Nancy. When you started Homey, what advice would you give? What was your biggest, say, pitfall or mistake during the what you had not expected to encounter while setting up your startup? That was completely unexpected for you, and that would be a lesson, for example, for the people listening in today.
Yeah, I think that's hard to have one lesson, but I think we maybe even spend too much time thinking and brainstorming about the customer, I think we could have started even earlier with building those washing machines. So we spent quite a bit of time deliberating which customer groups, how does it work? But I think it really came to life when we got a little bit of funding from TU Delft to build those 3 washing machines. And even, I think that was like a small seed fund, but I think that really helped to get it going, test it in the consumers' homes. And you can do it with many propositions, like set up a fake website, build even a paper prototype of something. So I think we may have wasted some time up front thinking too much on it and doing and not doing yet. So that's my current advice to people.
Yeah, it's actually great advice, and also it's very nice how both of you, with your presentations, brought a lot together that we have been discussing in the past sessions. And the advice of just starting and not deliberating too much is also actually for our MOOC. Professor Dr. Hein Roelsema was a big fan of this, that we should not talk too much and too long about setting it up, but actually doing it. And that's why we did it. And I would like to ask him also to turn on his camera and his video. And in the meantime, I would like to thank Professor Dr. Nancy Bocken. I would like to thank Alexander Smotritsky, CEO of WiseSoil, for their joining us today. It was very nice to have you with us. Thank you also for sharing your contacts with the group. Well, we hope to see you, of course, in live sessions in Russia, both of you. And for now, I would like to give the word to Hein Roelsema. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Alexander. And Hein, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Jerke. You also said that indeed we have done this a bit of the lean launchpad ourselves, like just starting, and there was of course speed because we were all surprised by how the crisis has hit. I think that I would like to compliment you and Nuffic for taking this up. Nuffic is a very bureaucratic organization, like the Dutch government, and it is applaudable how you and the organization said, well, we take up this challenge, and have shown a lot of intrapreneurship within your organization. And so thanks very much for you, and also extend it to your director. The thanks from the university, not only Utrecht University, but we have had many universities. I would also like to extend my thanks to the embassy. So, of course, I know that you have also been involved in this, but the embassy has played a big role in using their network and finding the speakers. So I followed all the lectures, but if I just look at my own lecture about how fantastic the local speaker was on venture capital in Russia, but I don't want to say anything, but also the Innovation Service of Moscow, Skorkovo. I think that many of these things come from the Dutch embassy, who have very actively been engaged in finding these speakers. So I don't see them here, so I hope that we can extend the thanks to that. I think that is always this, but I also like to stress that over the course we had an immense amount of participation. So I'm not going to give numbers on what we were expecting in the beginning of the course, but we would have been happy with 50 to 60 people actually sitting up. But there have been 10 times that in the first course, and of course people look at what is interesting for them. So that's always nice to have the numbers, but I also think that compared to other courses that I've done, or also online, the amount of questions and participation and involvement of people on the chat, but also now in the Telegram group and things like that has been fantastic. So as in the Netherlands we say, please applaud yourself. But I also tend to think that the participants should also applaud themselves. And so that is, I think, quite a compliment as well. As a last remark, of course, I'm very much looking forward for the people who would like to have certificates to do the assignment. I hope for many video things and presentations, because that really makes also my life much more fun to see who is actually doing these kind of things. Of course, I will be happy with written things as well, but of course, I'd like to see a bit more lively kind of things as well. So I hope that many people will follow up. Yeah, it's been very much of a pleasure. There are all kinds of questions, and I think that's always like a question with entrepreneurship. Follow up, do it again. Yes, I have to say to the participants that I was extremely pleased with the quality. So often you have to improve on quality if you're an entrepreneur over time. But if I look back at this course, my most frightening element as an entrepreneur is whether we can actually improve on this. So with respect, of course, with the organization, maybe yes, but if I look at how the speakers have done, have informed us, I was so that makes it also that as an entrepreneur, that if you do it again, you don't want to make it plain vanilla in that sense. So we have to come up with something new. I know that Nuffic is interested. Everybody's interested to reach this out. Yeah. So other topics, other courses. It is all well possible that we will talk to Nuffic on this. And let me also, of course, for the people who are in the groups, please invite you to it. If you have suggestions, as we would call customer feedback, in this kind of process, please give it to us. What you would see better, different, extended, and things like that. Then that is very helpful for us to see what we do. So of course we fly into this as a lean launchpad. So we don't know, but we'll definitely will follow up with more things to come. Yeah, I think that's from my side. I think.
Thank you. Yes, and indeed about the feedback, we will send a survey in a couple of days to everybody who attended the lectures, and you can tell us which lecture you like best and why, and which topics you would like to have covered by us next time. I want to thank Hein again, but indeed my colleagues, my local colleagues, the colleagues at the embassy, particularly Jelena Gitagurova, who is my colleague at the Netherlands Education Support Office, and Jelena Kisingasheva, who is the colleague at the Netherlands Embassy working at the Innovation Department. They've put in a huge amount of work. It was a pleasure to work with everybody, including the attendees. Don't be a stranger. You know how to find us and where to find us. And we look forward to seeing you again somewhere else. And please send in your assignments. The more the better, I say. I don't know if Hein agrees, but the more the better. So thank you all. Thank you, Hein. And then I'm turning off this recording. See you all next time.
Bye. Yeah, see you.
Bye, everyone.